Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to some breaking news from Moscow photographer and West to Freedom's own Kevin Michelizzi over in Crimea. It's your boy Eddie here from Moscow, Russia, and it is 8:15 in the p.m. here in Moscow, which puts it about, 11 a.m. Central Time back in the States?
It's 11:15 Central.
11:15 Central Time. Okay, so lots to talk about. We just want to touch on a couple of things about USAID, which has been blowing up the news since, about Sunday evening? It's when I started to notice it, and it's run its course on Monday as well. I think it was kind of masterful the way, how do you pronounce it? DOGE? DOGE? Doggy? Doggy?
and I see it.
Idea.
Yeah, when I see it, it's a crappy cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So I'm just going to call it DOGE. DOGE?
How about Department
Doge?
of Musk?
Yeah. Elon's corner of the government that's not even a government agency. But anyway, yeah. I thought it was masterful how Elon's autistic investigators, or whatever you want to call these guys, little dogies, the little dogies went into USAID offices on, I guess, Saturday or Sunday, and just started wreaking havoc. And one of the first things they did was they locked out all of the employees from accessing the computer systems remotely. They basically stopped all of the funding and all of the funding operations at USAID, and started kind of digging into files. And as they were coming up with files, I guess they were throwing them out to Elon, and he's like, "Oh my gosh," and then he'd put that on X, and then, "Oh my gosh," and he put that on X, and then we were just inundated with a lot of information about USAID, which I have heard about, you have heard about. I knew that it was more than a humanitarian organization, which it actually isn't. But like a lot of government programs, they like to sound charitable. They like to sound humanitarian, but they are not. Many of your NGOs are set up that way. And of course, one of the NGOs that I'm very familiar with, because of my area and my neck of the woods back in Texas, is Catholic Charities. And I will have you know that Catholic Charities is neither Catholic nor charitable, although they operate in some capacity around Catholic parishes and churches and things like that. But they are not that whatsoever. Anyway, so your thoughts?
The interesting thing is, like you say, everybody thinks about the aspects of the humanitarian assistance that they allegedly provide. Emergency aid for natural disasters, for conflicts and humanitarian crises. But nobody thinks about the fact that they're also involved in democracy and government, promoting human rights, the rule of law, and electoral processes worldwide, like the electoral process we had in 2014 in our neighboring country. And if you really look into them, we're talking 55 million. We've got woke senators and representatives out in front of USAID protesting, and they're going to break down the doors. And this reminds me of Odessa back in 2014. But they have provided billions in financial, military, and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Billions. So then you get into Zelensky's most recent comment of, I don't know where all the money is. I only got 75 billion of the 177 billion that USAID gave us. 177 billion.
Think about that. I mean, that's an astronomical number that is just incredible. And so, yeah, USAID funded Ukraine, funded Maidan in 2014, and of course has funded probably a number of coups around the world. In fact, and dang it, I didn't save the tweet or the picture of the tweet. But anyway, let me see if I can find it. But in 2012, President Putin kicked out USAID from the Russian Federation because they were starting to stir up shish kebab in the Russian Federation. Yeah. And so he closed off Russia to any Western influence coming from USAID. Also interesting, what other country comes to mind that is closed to USAID?
Well, I don't know. We can start naming.
I'll just tell you this. Yeah. I'll name it. China. China is a closed country, and it's closed off to USAID.
Yeah.
Which two countries does America consider as an enemy that's always in the narrative?
Well, yeah.
An enemy of the United States. China and Russia. Why? They're closed off to USAID.
But how about like Iran, North Korea? Are they closed off to USAID as well?
North Korea, yes. Iran, I don't know. I don't know if some factions have been able to go into North Korea or not. That would be interesting to find out.
Well, let's just ask somebody very knowledgeable.
Ask Rock.
Ms. ChatGPT says no, USAID does not operate in Iran due to long-standing political tensions and U.S. sanctions.
That makes sense.
However, USAID does not have direct programs in Iran. They have worked through NGOs in Iran. So they've given money to the same NGOs that have stirred up trouble in Georgia, Armenia, Poland. So, they're basically a propaganda arm for the United States.
Yeah, they sure are. It's USAID is the tip of the iceberg, and I like to make the analogy that USAID is the banking arm, the funding mechanism for the deep state, and not only the deep state, but for the CIA and all of their little shenanigans they like to play around the world. But here is, come on, there we go. So Elon put this tweet out and said, did you know that USAID, using your tax dollars, funded bioweapon research, including COVID-19 that killed millions of people? So $53 million were funneled to Echo Health Alliance, which then used these taxpayer funds to support the gain-of-function research on coronavirus at the Wuhan lab, research that likely led to the creation of COVID-19. 19. Now, I remember, I'm young enough to remember when any mention of this on Twitter 1.0 got you banned. I got shadow banned for this. If you
Yeah.
put this
And
on Facebook, you
and
couldn't
let's
talk
call
about
it the unmentionable virus so that we
it.
don't
Was the
get pinged on YouTube again.
yeah, but I don't know. But yeah, the unmentionable, the C word. But
So
you know,
guess
you would get. Go ahead.
guess what program they did do in Iran? I'm looking at here from our friend ChatGPT. The unmentionable virus. They
Interesting.
provided vaccines and assistance to their health organizations to get the word out, to get people vaccinated. Imagine that.
So, uh, the C word and all of this bioweapon research that was unmentionable just a few years ago and was totally taboo. Let me bring up this. Does anybody remember in early March 2022, at the very beginning of the SMO, there was a lot of chatter with regard to biolabs in Ukraine and how uh, U.S. Uh, that the U.S. was trying to either shut down or gain some sort of control over because they didn't want Russian forces taking them over. And then, of course, a few months later, I think in May or June of 2022, we had Victoria Nuland from the State Department being questioned by none other than Marco Rubio, where she lets the cat out of the bag, says, we have medical research laboratories in Ukraine. Oh, really? Wow. Imagine that. Then
And
that became censored as well. It's also been discovered in the USAID documents that funding and operations to censor these narratives that were not popular with the Biden regime at the time, a lot of that funding came from USAID. Everybody remember NAFO and the NAFO fellas in that hashtag? If you know who these bots are, you know. But a lot of that, all of that was funded via USAID. So extremely nefarious, extremely dirty. Uh, this is dark and it goes deep. And I think we've only scratched the mere surface of it. But it's going to be interesting.
one, think about it. Before Rubio let it slip, they denied and denied and denied that these labs were in Ukraine, despite
Absolutely.
Russia showing proof at the UN. Here's documents from what are they? The chemical weapons guys, OPCW, and everyone's nope. Russia faked them. But
And to date, the UN has refused to even investigate, to even talk about
yeah,
Russia's claims of bioweapon laboratories in Ukraine. I wonder what the UN is going to have to say now that it's out
I
in,
would
out
bet
in the open.
I would bet nothing. I think you'll see more pushes to remove the permanent members and put more members on the Security Council. But that's just a wild guess.
It might be a wild guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the other interesting thing about this accountability, the whole idea of going into USAID by DOGE, I guess on the Dogies.
The Dogies, yeah. Let's go with
Just to
Dogies.
audit, simply to audit. Okay? Now, the Democratic Party, the party that voted to fund 87,000, the hiring of 87,000 additional IRS agents to go after people like you and me to audit us, they are vehemently opposed to Elon Musk and his Dogies and his Department of what is it? Government. I can't even remember what it stands for anymore. If you know, let me know in the comments.
What? Doge?
Yeah, Department of
Government Efficiency.
Efficiency. That's the word I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So
the interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. They're refusing to want it to be audited.
Yeah.
But they want IRS to audit you and me.
Yeah. So the doggies, they have been granted access to the Treasury Department's federal payment system, which processes trillions of dollars a year. And, so they're looking into misappropriation of taxpayer data and funds and misappropriation of federal funds. So like what goes to our neighboring country? And Musk. Now, this is one I would love to see in the government. He's making these guys work up to 120 hours a week to instill Silicon Valley drive into the federal operations. Now, when I look at the government workers around Russia and I compare them to government workers in the United States, I see similar things. We'll get to it when we get to it, maybe, if we feel like it and my toast wasn't burned this morning. I would like to see them have to get into what the rest of us had to deal with.
Or like like we used to say back in Texas when I worked for the government, and of course, if you had to measure something and you'd kind of measure it, and well, what's it say? And, well, it's 2.5. That's close enough for government work. And that's basically how it goes, And
we have that
to be an
here in
hour.
Russia too.
Well, it's an hour and 15 minutes. That's close enough to an hour. No big deal.
Yeah, we have that same saying here in Russia. Recall it's good enough for work, government work. Putin can't see it from his house.
That's right. That's right. So listen to these guys cry and wail because their house is being audited. Check this out.
If DOGE attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration. They could be next. Or maybe our National Security Agency.
Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID. The United States Congress did for the American people. And just like Elon Musk did not create USAID, he doesn't have the power to destroy it. And who's going to stop him? We are. We're going to stop him. Elon Musk, you may have illegally seized power over the financial payment systems of the United States Department of Treasury, but you don't control the money of the American people. The United States Congress does that under Article 1 of the Constitution. And just like the president who is elected to something cannot impound the money of the people, we don't have a fourth branch of government called Elon Musk. And that's going to become real clear.
Yeah. So, you know,
He's big mad.
the the interesting thing is, you know, Congress has the power, you know, to deal with American money. Well, except when they want to send money to a country that they aren't supposed to be sending it to, when the president signs orders, or should I now say former president signs orders that bypass Congress's rules. So, you know, what I would say, if they're so outraged at what Musk is doing, what are they hiding? You
Exactly.
know, is it all of a sudden people are going to start seeing that these senators start out as farmers who come into Congress and leave rich men, and where that money
Absolutely.
came from? Ooh.
Absolutely. We know where it comes from, and it's all being funneled through USAID. So, yeah,
And other
very
organizations
telling.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you this. You know, I worked for propaganda department, creating systems to put propaganda out for the United States against their enemies and NATO's enemies. We often would get a project from the government through the government accounting office that allocates the funds for contracts. It would be $260 million. That would last us about 4 months. And we get to that 4 months, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do for funding? And all of a sudden, 500-600 million would just show up out of the blue. And we're not only having weekly meetings with generals from different divisions of the DOD, Cyber Command, but NSA, CIA, black sleeve funding. And in case people don't know, black sleeve funding is money where it just shows up. Nobody knows the source of it. Nobody knows who's spending it other than our intelligence services. So that's what black sleeve funding is. It's money that isn't on the books. And I worked for these guys for 2 years in this method. All black sleeve funding.
Crazy. And again, I didn't save this tweet. I should have. And I want to say it was Elon Musk. So if you have X, you can go and you can look it up. But he posted a tweet where he said some of the spending that is going on at the IRS, I want to say it was IRS, they spent $220,000 on Starbucks K-cups, little Keurig coffee cups, for the office in Washington, D.C., which isn't even really staffed because most of the staff works from home. I mean, think about that for a while. All right. $220,000 in coffee for an office where everybody works from home. That's just part of it. But yeah, it's incredible. The amount of waste.
This is where they say we've spent the money on this, but it actually goes elsewhere.
Exactly. Can you drink? Well, it depends on how big this office is and employees, but $220,000 in coffee. Wow. And Starbucks coffee. Oof. Man, worst of the worst. But yeah. I want to play one more video. This is from our Secretary of State. Actually, this is Marco Rubio, but I don't know who this guy is. I think he's an imposter. Perhaps he's a body double, but I don't know who this guy is. But check him out and check out what he has to say.
Look, I mean, my frustration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so. So the functions of USAID, there are a lot of functions of USAID that are going to continue, that are going to be part of American foreign policy, but it has to be aligned with American foreign policy. I said very clearly during my confirmation hearing that every dollar we spend and every program we fund, that will be aligned with the national interest of the United States. And USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars. And so I'm very troubled by these reports that they've been unwilling to cooperate with people who are asking simple questions about what does this program do, who gets the money, who are our contractors, who's funded, and that sort of level of insubordination makes it impossible to conduct the sort of mature and serious review that I think foreign aid writ large should have. We're spending taxpayer money here. These are not donor dollars. These are taxpayer dollars, and we owe the American people the assurances that every dollar we are spending abroad is being spent on something that furthers our national interest. And so far, a lot of the people that work at USAID have just simply refused to cooperate.
Are you currently in charge of USAID? Or are you
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region. That cannot continue. USAID is not an independent, non-governmental entity. It is an entity that spends taxpayer.
Who is this guy?
It doesn't sound like the guy who was running against Trump back a year ago.
Not at all. Not at all. And it sounds like he got a brain. So, yeah, little Marco Rubio. Interesting.
So let's think about this a little bit. They say that USAID was, created by Congress, but reality is it's nothing but a department under the Department of State. So while they're questioning Trump's legalities of creating the doggies, did Congress really have the authority to create a department within another department? I mean, I'd love to be the lawyer on this one or part of the legal team. I could raise all kinds of questions on both sides of this. So, they're saying, well, they're being given access to sensitive government systems. Well, Trump doesn't have the right to hire somebody and give them access to government systems. If they've got a security clearance, hey. And who tells the president that he can't give somebody a security clearance?
Exactly.
Conflicts of interest and ethics. Oh, well, it's a conflict of interest because he owns Tesla and SpaceX. So, I don't know. They're making stuff up.
The argument is just they're just not valid. And come to find out, USAID, perhaps this is unknown to Jamie Raskin, was not created by Congress. It was created by executive order by none other than President John F. Kennedy. So it can be done away with by executive order. At least that's my understanding. USAID.
Yeah, all our friend ChatGPT says it was established in 1961, operates under the Department of State. Yep, and created by President John F. Kennedy.
How do you like them apples?
Yeah, so an executive order created it, so obviously an executive order can do away with it.
Yep. Very, very interesting. So I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think this is definitely, if you want a metaphor, I liken this to Trump or the MAGA team or the Trump regime, whichever one you want to call them, taking the first right cross to the deep state, to the other side, and saying, "Hey, man, we're here."
Just so people don't think you're blowing smoke, here it is.
There you go.
Here's the executive order that created it. So they're just making stuff up.
Yeah. So Jamie Raskin doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well,
but we knew that. I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking
yeah.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, so what do you guys? We got 25 in the live. Thank you for an unannounced live. I'm very happy. Thank you so much for taking time from your busy day to join in. Let us know in the comments what you think about USAID. Yeah. Do you think it's a big deal? Do you think it is, as I think it is, the tip of the iceberg? Because I think there's a whole lot more very dark and very ugly stuff that's way deep down in USAID's history. So
yeah, I think there's going to be a whole lot of loving going on.
Yeah. So it's just the tip of the iceberg. And then what do you think about, should they go to IRS next? I will tell you guys something. I am a former employee of the Internal Revenue Service. I had a seasonal and then a temporary position with IRS in the mid 80s when I was going to college. And my first job with IRS was working at the Austin Service Center. This is where all of your 1040s and your paper forms would go. And of course, this is back in the 80s, so no computers, nobody's filing online. And I worked in the deposit section, so we were actually collecting money. And I worked in a special section called cash deposit, because there were, believe it or not, some Americans who would pay their taxes in cash, and they would send in cash. So yeah. Anyway,
I have thought about the IRS because they're just collecting it; they aren't spending it. But I bet they're not overly efficient either.
No, I thought they were the most inefficient government agency. Of course, that was the first government agency that I ever worked for.
Yeah.
Because the amount of paper waste, it was just, it boggled the mind. Okay, the amount of papers that were kept, the amount of papers that were shred, incredible amounts. And so, of course, that was back in the 80s. Now everything's electronic. Should be a lot different, hopefully. But
yep.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
I've heard that Musk's next target is Department of Education, and I would like to see that one. I mean, they get a lot of money, and they supposedly give it out to local schools and stuff. But then why do local schools have problems funding like extracurricular activities, and teachers have such low wages and stuff? Where does all that money go to?
Let's go a little bit further. Why do your property taxes go to pay for school funding when they're receiving federal funds, when they're receiving funds from the state? Why do you tax me on the value of my property to fund the school? My kids don't go to that school anymore. They're gone and graduated.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So why do those of us who don't have kids have to pay for the kids to go to school? Yeah.
Exactly. And not only that, Let's go one step further. Because of the area that I lived in, deep South Texas, we had a huge population of illegal immigrants and their children. And the law states that if you are a child under the age of 15, you must be enrolled in school. And it doesn't matter whether you are a citizen or not, or an illegal alien. Doesn't matter. You are entitled by law to an education. And not only that, you are compelled, as a parent, compelled to make sure that kid goes to school. So
you're saying that
why is
the
my
US
tax dollars funding illegal immigrants to get an education?
So you're saying it works like the U.S. medical system, where they also have a right to go get medical care, and the government is paying for it through Medicaid, Medicare, state aid programs, the goodness of the hospital's heart because they get to charge everybody else for it. Are you saying this is the situation?
Same situation. Same situation.
Yeah.
America is the most generous country. The most generous country because they take it from the generosity of taxpayers and pass it on to those who do not pay taxes. How do you like that? It's a broken system. I mean, it's a broken system. We've known the system is broken, and we've never had an opportunity to fix it. We've never had someone in a president or in a position of power who would want to fix it. Now, can Trump do it? I don't know. Does Trump have all the answers? I don't know. But I think he genuinely, and most of the people within his administration have so far shown that they understand that our current systems, from education, from taxes, from healthcare, from on and on and on, our intel agencies are broken systems, and they need to be either revamped or done away with if they don't do us any good. So, and many people say, did you vote for this? Yeah, I did. Well, actually, I didn't. I didn't vote in this election, but I would have. I would have
So
voted
would
for
I.
it.
And I know what
So-
side I would have voted. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would have voted for this. Absolutely. Hell yeah, twice on Sunday. So let's see what happens.
And the government bloat. I don't care what department you look at, the bloat in the number of employees they have. And I'm thinking specifically about the education department because I've gone toe to toe with them several times through my children's lives. And the thing that always aggravated me is I was not only paying for the illegal kids and the people who had kids in the school, but then I was having to pay for private school for my own kids. So just to put it out there, I'm all for tax credits for parents who are paying tuition to a private school for their children.
Why not? Absolutely.
And those schools get by on a lot less money a year than the public schools do and do a much better job.
And here's the deal. If you homeschool your child, and of course they're enrolled in a curriculum that is acceptable to the state education board in whatever state you're at, you shouldn't be paying property taxes to the school district. Why should you? They don't. Your kids don't use any of the facilities. They're not being fed lunch or breakfast. They're not being bussed there. Why should they be paying for it? That's what I say.
Yeah. Woo. Boy,
So
we're going to talk about several things, but this pretty much filled up the hour.
Sure did, guys. We're going on, we just hit 40-minute mark. We're at 9 p.m. and we have got a hard stop. But we just wanted to come on and just have a quick little conversation, talk about USAID. Keep your eyes and ears open to USAID. I think there's a whole lot more coming. And we didn't even get to talk about the plane, but we'll do that maybe Sunday, Saturday
Tomorrow,
or
Sunday,
tomorrow, whatever. All right, guys. Thanks for being.
Just watch the channel and see when we decide we're gonna click the button.
We're just kind of a couple of idiots anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Пока.
Пока.